And yes, we're finally here on Figurama by enemyzero, opening up G.I. Joe Classifieds. I've collected Classifieds since the first figures launched, and I've never opened a single one. So today we're going to change that. We're going to start opening them up. And I'm going to split these videos up in manageable sections, because I have a lot of G.I. Joes, okay? So I'm probably going to open them up maybe 5 or 6 at a time or so, do the videos, talk about them. G.I. Joe's my favorite action figures of all time. They're the figures I played with when I was little. One of the reasons I got into G.I. Joe's more than anything else was because they were super cheap. And I love most of the Classified line, how they modernized some of my, fan favorites from back in the day. And I can't wait to start opening them up with you guys, gals, non-binary pals. Let's go. Yo, Joe. And here they are, and what I'm going to do is take them in lots, maybe, 4, 5, 6 figures or so. And one little stipulation with this whole project too, until I get caught up in G.I. Joe's, I probably won't go over the whole figure, like I'm not going to show off all the articulation and everything. All the figures articulate basically the same anyways in the G.I. Joe Classified line. So what I want to do is get caught up, opening them, get them all out of the package, look at them, compare them to the old Joes that I had when I was a wee little enemyzero. I thought about different ways to split this up, maybe doing all the Joes at once, all the Cobras at once, and whatever. So I just sort of put them in order and broke them into groups of like 5 or 6 or so. I don't have the whole series. There's some figures that I purposefully didn't collect because I'm not a completionist collector. I just want to collect what I want to collect. I typically don't buy figures that I just have no interest in. So these are the first 4 we're going to look at. So this is number 1, Roadblock, number 2, Snake Eyes, number 3, Destro, and number 5, Scarlett. I'm missing Duke. So I never got Duke, and Duke's now, I don't know, he's like a collector's item. I don't know why. He's like, $50 or so. So anyways, I got the newer Duke. So we're going to open up the newer Duke. So I know this is like a mishmash, a hodgepodge of different things. But that's what this series is going to be till I get caught up. And then I'll probably open them as they come out, if that makes sense. With everybody, here. So we're going to open those 4 and Duke on his Ram. This is the Tiger Force Duke. I believe this is a Target exclusive because it's the Tiger Force series. So this is going to be my shelf Duke. So we'll start it out with Roadblock here, one of my favorite characters when I was younger, because he always talked in rhymes. I thought that was the coolest thing ever, especially in the G.I. Joe movie. I'll maybe do a separate episode on the G.I. Joe movie eventually, but I adore the G.I. Joe movie, adore. So I don't think I ever owned any Roadblocks when I was younger, but he was definitely one of the most well-known characters, being obviously one of the only African Americans on the show. But just, his character things, like the talking in rhyme and everything, and a lot of his mannerisms were so funny to me. I really, really liked them. And so this is his package. Obviously, G.I. Joe Classifieds at this time were windowed packaging, so you can see everything inside. This updated Classified costume is based mostly on his Series 3 version, the second version of Roadblock from 1986. The original figure in Roadblock, he just had like a camouflaged like tank top on in the middle. It was very sort of bare bones. And the second one, he had a green vest on with pants. And I'll obviously put pictures here on the screen. And it had like white upper sleeves on it too. So this is sort of like a mix between them both. And I do really like this. I know they did I think a redeco of this one, but I definitely like this version. I have no complaints about it. And that leads us to the packaging. And I must say, full transparency right off the bat, I despise the G.I. Joe packaging, despise it. So here's the front, it's got good art on it. All of the figures have more artwork on the right spine. On this side, they have their character sort of abilities and then the number, right? So he's number 1. He's the first figure here. And, these are sort of their roles and their abilities, their specialties. So I think this is Vanguard. This is heavy weapons. This is strength. And I think this is artillery. So these are his, skills, and they can get rankings, I guess, in each one, depending on, how strong they are and what. We haven't gotten to the bad part of the packaging yet. The bad part? This. I despise these backs because one of the key things in a G.I. Joe back in the day was you go to Walmart, you know, you get a random G.I. Joe. And I grew up with not a lot of money. So G.I. Joes were my #1 toy back in the day because they were so cheap. Like you could go to Walmart and I could beg my mom, hey, buy me this, you know, $2 toy. And I would normally get one. So that's why I had more G.I. Joes than I had other toys, because other toys were so much more expensive. One $2 G.I. Joe, you know, was the coolest thing in the world. That was Christmas for me back in the day. But I digress. The packaging, when you buy a G.I. Joe, had all the other G.I. Joes in the series on the back. And so you got your G.I. Joe, you went home, you read the back at all these other cool characters that maybe you never heard of, that you can, you know, try to look for next time you go to, you know, Walmart or something like that. And this package, these packages just have generic pictures on the back. You know, a lot of the figures nowadays have more figures in the line. Like, hey, these are the other figures that came out at the same time. And G.I. Joe doesn't do that to this date. And it's so disappointing, so disappointing. I know it's just the packaging. I know we're buying it for the figures inside, but still, there's a history there of G.I. Joe being one of the shining franchises to show the other figures in the series that all come out at the same time on the back. So, you know, you can make your little checklist when you're a little kid, make a little checklist. Ooh, I want, you know, Dusty and, you know, this other dude. And, you know, it's just disappointing to me. It's very disappointing to me. Whoever's in charge of the packaging, man, you suck. Next up is almost everyone's favorite G.I. Joe, I would say, is Snake Eyes. I had a couple Snake Eyes when I was younger. I'll talk about them when I get the figure out. But Snake Eyes obviously was always one of my favorite too. You know, the mysterious ninja. He was made my favorite a little bit more by the comic books. I think the way they did him in the comic books was better than even the show. Like in the comic books, I distinctly remember a storyline where they, you know, eventually showed his face and he was one of those super mysterious guys, you know what I mean? And we'll see that when we look at his sort of abilities, but this is what his package looks like. He's, you know, #2 in the line. He's got a lot of accessories in there. His uniform is mostly his version 2 uniform from 1985 or so. I think the first one, and you could tell his uniforms, a lot of his uniforms, you could tell the difference by the face. Because the body, obviously they updated the body for this, but his face, his visor, that's his version 2 figure visor. The version 1 figure, he just had a blank flat face. It was almost like goggles under the face too, like, you know, like swimming goggles it almost looked like. So this is mainly from the version 2, old G.I. Joe, which came with Timber. So I know there's more. There's obviously 2 versions of Snake Eyes after this with Timber, but that's basically what this costume is based on. And again, flipping it to the side, you get some cool art on this side with Timber down at the bottom. On this side are his abilities, so covert ops, bladed weapons, stealth, and ninjutsu. Let's not talk about the backs anymore. Next up, figure #3 is Destro, which was my favorite villain. I never liked Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander was kind of an annoying idiot. And I always sided with Destro because he was the guy who knew what he was doing. So my favorite version of Destro is the one I have. But the gold helmet one, which obviously is not out in the classified series yet. Sort of. We'll talk about that later. But anyways, this is Destro. So he's second in command to Cobra Commander, and definitely one of my favorite Cobras. And again, in the comic books, not even talking about the cartoon, the comic books and the movie, Destro was so good, so good. I loved his voice in the show. It was so iconic. Going around the side, I love the art on the Destro box too. Like some of these boxes I might get rid of, but I don't know about Destro's box. I love the art, especially even on the front too. Just the art style of it. It looks so good with the iconic classic colors and everything. On the other side, he's #3 in the series. And let's see if I get this right. So mechanical engineering, light weapons, black market sales, and I think weapon development or something like that. Weapon development. So he's, you know, he's the smart guy behind the scenes that builds Cobra's equipment and stuff that Cobra Commander tries to ruin. And like I said, I'm missing Duke, so I'm skipping over to 5. So this is Scarlett, and I believe this is the redeco. I wasn't a super fan of the first version of Scarlett, so I skipped it. But then this redeco I definitely got because I do like it quite a lot. And, you know, Scarlett's another fan favorite character. She was in the very first original series ever. So this costume is sort of her original version from 1982. it's definitely way more modernized than that. Her costume in the first G.I. Joe. The first line of G.I. Joe figures, if you haven't seen them, I'm gonna put some pictures here. The first figures in the first line of G.I. Joes are super like plain Jane, like look pretty ugly, right? So, you know, this is an update to that, obviously, and this is way better. But we'll see her when she gets out, you know what I mean? But she's a good character. She's Snake Eyes' main squeeze in the comic book. I think they're married, if I can remember correctly. Anyways, they're together in the comic book, so I definitely remember that from my childhood, reading stories about, you know, her and him. So again, same windowed packaging as the rest of the G.I. Joes. And I do like how they change the art style on these a little bit, depending on the character. I think that's pretty cool. Other side, you got the full body shot for training when she's, you know, younger. And the other side, she's number 5 in the series, and she is intelligence, aero weapons, martial arts, and classified, whatever that means. I know she would go undercover a lot, so that's obviously what that means, probably. I think, I hope. And then, like I said, I never got Duke. He's expensive now, so maybe I'll get him eventually. I needed a Duke. In this, you know, I saw this on the shelf. It might have even been on sale, I think. So I got it. So this is a newer one. So this is, you know, 40 in the series. So we skipped over number 4 and went to 40. We reversed the numbers. So here's the package, you know, Duke on the Ram cycle, Tiger Force colors. Number 40 in the series, like we talked about. Kind of hard getting this box and frame, but there's the side with the art. And going over his abilities, he's leader. Obviously, he's the natural leader of G.I. Joe. Light weapons, skydiving, and tactics. So, semi-weird combination here, but he is the fearless leader, right? We all know that. And here's the back with the action shot, all the accessories and everything in there, which we'll take a look at when we get in there. This costume from Duke is his second version. So Duke only had one version of figures before his Tiger Force variant. From 1988 came out. So this is obviously, you know, an updated version of the Tiger Force variant. All right, Roadblock out of the box, I think is pretty cool. I know some people didn't like this version, I guess. That's why they did a redeco. But I quite like it. I like this lion tattoo. It took me a while to tell what this was. It's not super clear. I thought it was a mistake or something, but I think it's a lion face or something like that. Okay, that's pretty cool. One of the things that definitely looks different than the original figure is the figure that this is based on, the second version of him with the green vest. And I know it's that version, obviously, because the green vest is super similar. The pockets are on the same side. The red pleats in the middle are the same too. So like I said, I'll put pictures here because that's the purpose of this. That's what I like to do in my videos, do something a little different. Show you about what it's based on and stuff like that. But anyways, he got the goofy smile on his face in the old figure, and this one he's so serious. He almost looks a little like LeBron James. Very, very stoic, very serious. And Roadblock was a goofy character back in the day, right? He always talked in rhyme. He cut the mood, you know? And so this is sort of the opposite of that, which, you know, obviously in the classified line, they're taking it super serious. They don't want anything goofy. Unless you look at, you know, Prophet Director Destro, which we'll talk about in the next episode maybe. Anyways, I definitely like the figure, and it's got the typical G.I. Joe articulation. Like I said, I'm not going to go over the articulation for every figure. It's the same. And I got 5 figures per video, so we're going to blow through this, right? So he's got the normal, you know, articulation that you would think a figure like this would have. He moves really good. Does have pins in it. I don't know if they moved to a pinless design in the newer figures. We'll get to that eventually. He doesn't come with alternate hands or anything, so 2 trigger hands. Pants are a little plain, I would say, maybe a little skinny. And I know I'm not going to talk about articulation, but one thing about the articulation on him is most of the G.I. Joe have that crunch, that ab crunch here, and he might have it there, but this vest it's not hard plastic, it's rubber, but it does prevent a lot of that movement. Backwards, you can get him back pretty good, so I do think that ab crunch is there, because the back folds out quite a lot to give it some room, but the front not so much. The front is way, I don't know, more firm than the back, I guess you could say. Maybe it's just, you know, the design of it or whatever, but I do like it. I maybe wish he had lighter pants like the original figure had, but there's some good touches here. Like I like the asymmetrical knee things here. He's got, you know, a knee on this side uncovered, and he's got a cool knee pad over here on this side and everything. But definitely, comparing it to the old figure, you could definitely tell that this is Roadblock. The look is similar. The colors in the vest are similar. That's his iconic thing, is the green vest. So he's got it in this. So I think this is pretty good. All right, so let's talk about accessories here. He's only got a couple of them. He's got this little knife, and in the original figure, he did have a knife that you couldn't take off. It went in the front of his vest, so guess where this knife goes? It was right, you know, right in the front of his vest too. And that's one of the reasons I love the G.I. Joe Classified series, is most of the accessories the guys come with actually go on the body. So almost nothing is left in the box, if that makes sense. And to me, I think that's an amazing touch, right? Give them gear they could actually hold. Most of the figures do have a peg hole in the back, just like the original figures, even if they didn't come with a backpack. They all had a peg hole, obviously. So some of the Joes do have backpacks, you know what I mean? And all of them have peg holes. To me, that's a, you know, a homage to the old days. And another common complaint about, you know, whiny people with a Roadblock is the weapon is too futuristic. You know, the big gun that he came with originally was a, you know, a long range heavy artillery rifle, and you've had that tripod that went on the bottom. So, you know, I don't mind updated weaponry and stuff like that. This is a big, he's heavy artillery, right? This thing looks as heavy as you can get. And it does even come with, I didn't know what this was at first. I thought it was binoculars at something, but let's see if I can get it in right. There we go. Cha-ching. It's, you know, ammunition to clip in there, down there. And again, touches like that are pretty cool with this line. Like, I really love this line. This is my favorite childhood toy, and I love a lot of the classified stuff that I've seen. So Roadblock, I definitely like his figure. I do think it looks, you know, pretty similar to the original, a homage to the original. I wish he was a little, you know, less serious, a little more goofy, but I dig it. All right, next up is Snake Eyes, which I think everyone who my age that liked G.I. Joe when they was a kid, they were a kid, Snake Eyes was one of their favorites at some point, maybe their favorite G.I. Joe of all time at some point. Everybody loves Snake Eyes, right? This figure, I've been playing with it for a few minutes, posing it and checking some things out. It's so cool. And I remember when the series first came out, my friend Matt, Customs by Matchu, it's a channel I've linked before, he doesn't have any nostalgia with G.I. Joes. He doesn't really collect them, but he bought some of them. And I remember when it first came out, he was like, man, you gotta get Snake Eyes. It's one of the funnest times I've ever had posing a figure in like his display and stuff, was this Snake Eyes figure, and I can definitely tell that. This is so good. So it's got the normal, you know, G.I. Joe articulation, joint there, joint there. It's got the double elbows, double knees, the wrist goes back and forward. This is the ab crunch, right? So like I said, Roadblock, I'm pretty sure had ab crunch, but you couldn't really tell. But like, look at that. I mean, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. That's one of the posability features of the G.I. Joe series, is that ab crunch there, and it works so good. It looks so good with the armor and everything. And I love this costume. I love the updated costume, which again, as I said, it's version 2 based on his visor, right? So he's got that black visor that goes around. It even did have this original grenade, like bandolier here across his chest, which is super cool. That's a loose piece. This is a loose piece. The belt is a loose piece. Even these gun holsters right here, these two gun holsters, and sorry, this knife holster and the gun holster are definitely loose pieces. And I love those too. And you can definitely tell by looking at him. I'll do a group shot at the end, but you can tell by looking at him, he's definitely more slender than Roadblock, because obviously, you know, Roadblock's the big bodybuilder guy. You can definitely tell they made him slender. He's a little bit shorter and definitely slender, so he's got that, you know, ninja vibe going on, which it's Snake Eyes. This is classic Snake Eyes. Like, how could you want anything else other than this? Make sure you line up this hole too. There's a hole for his backpack, which we'll see in a second. So line that up there. And it does bring the grenades up a little bit, but then you just gotta make sure you put them down a little bit once that hole gets lined up in the back. But anyways, I love this costume. I love the update. He looks, you know, futuristic yet retro. Like, I don't know, this is amazing. This is one of the, I've only opened 2 figures, I know, but it's one of the best figures I've opened. One of the top 2. So accessories, he comes with a backpack. Remember the back hole like we talked about? So he's got a backpack with nice painted on details, nice sculpting in it for sure. I definitely like the details, and even just this simple silver paint buckles give it more class than if it was just a flat color. It does have a peg hole there. I believe that's for the sword sheath, which we'll talk about next. So he does. He's got his Askani sword with the, you know, the clan symbol right there, and the, you know, the black blade of the sword is his signature sword, and it goes right in there. If I can do it, stays in there nice and tight, won't fall out. And I believe this is the thing that's going to go on the backpack. So when it goes to his back, you know, he's got his sword ready to go, just like that. Very cool, very cool. All right, next up, he does have a small dagger, which does go in that holster on his hip, which I'll show you in a second. So it's a nice serrated blade up top. So the sculpt on this is pretty good. It's nice and, you know, straight. It's not all wonky. It is just one solid color, you know. On his hips right here, or not his hips, on his upper legs, he's got these holsters right here. They're loose pieces. There is articulation under them too, so they hid the articulation really good there. And on his other side, he's got a gun holster. And this is pretty cool. This gun goes in the holster there, but it also has a separate silencer piece that can go on the tip. Because, you know, he's a ninja, you know, he needs to sneak into places. So he can pull out this and the silencer. And there's actually a holster for the silencer too, right in there. And then the gun can go right in the holster, just like that. That's I don't know, that's amazing. I love it. All right, and the last accessory he comes with is another gun. It's like an Uzi type gun, it looks like. Maybe, you know, semi-automatic or something like that. The details on it look really good. It's very detailed. I like the, you know, current but future design on it. The sort of vibe that the Classified series is going for. This is it. It's a nice solid black color. There's no details or anything, but the sculpt work is pretty good. This is actually the only Snake Eyes I still have from when I was a kid. I haven't recollected any old G.I. Joes since I was a kid. So I only have a few of them, because most of my G.I. Joes when I was a kid, I passed on to like cousins and brothers and stuff like that. So I don't have a lot of them. And as an adult collector, I've never gone back to get them. Maybe I will someday when I have more disposable income. But this is the only Snake Eyes I own from back in the day. So I don't have the original version. This is version 4, I think, from 1991, I think it was. So this is the one I have. This is the one I played with mostly when I was a kid. So this is a huge upgrade to that. This is Snake Eyes. When I think of Snake Eyes, this is it. This figure is amazing. Oh, his backpack fell off. So anyways, like I was saying, this is Snake Eyes. This is Snake Eyes. This is a perfect figure as far as I'm concerned. This is amazing. All right, here's Destro, Mr. Chrome Dome himself, Silverhead Destro. Like I said, my favorite version of Destro is the gold helmet one, which comes much later than this. But you know, the original had the silver helmet. And as far as I know from the comic book, from reading the old comic book back in the day, the silver helmet is actually, or the metallic helmet is actually a family heirloom. His father had one too. And, you know, I guess passed it down throughout the generations and everything like that. That's some of his backstory at least. And this is the super iconic color scheme of the costume for, you know, a lot of the Cobras, like the crimson red with the black, maybe a little gray in there and stuff. And obviously he's got the, you know, the shiny silver helmet here. He's got this necklace, which contains, I think that's his family like gemstone or something like that in it. Maybe I'm not remembering right, but that's from the comic book. I don't think it's explained in the show at all. But again, Destro was one of my favorite, you know, Cobras growing up, because he actually knew what he was doing. He actually knew what he was doing. I actually have one of my old Destros too. And here I have one of my original Destros. This is version 3 from 1992. It's not the original version. The original 2 versions that came out. This is, I think, the 3rd version based on my research. But this was my childhood Destro, and it's got all the same notes. Both of these figures have all the same notes on it. That crimson red, the black, the silver helmet, the family necklace on their neck. It's so good, the way they updated it. Maybe I'm not so much a fan of this sort of darker gray in there. I think it maybe have looked better just all black with maybe some more red accents or something like that. But this is Destro, right? Like, you can't mistake it for anything else. So quick look over the body. I like how they did some sculpting lines in the head. I don't know if you can see that, but they did some, you know, metallic sculpting lines. So the head actually looks metal rather than, you know, just like he's Silver Surfer or something like that. Like it's just skin. So I definitely like that. There's like a circle in his forehead. So I definitely like the new touches like that. I love the rockets on his wrist. You know, he always had those wrist rockets, those Boba Fett rockets on his wrist. That was super cool. The body is kind of plain, and like I said, I don't know if I'm a super big fan of this gray in here. I don't know if it's for me. One thing about his articulation, his holster right here for his gun has a strap that goes up to his waist. When you do spin him around, it does move that a little bit. So I would just be careful of that. Maybe not to break that or anything, pull that out or anything. But he's got the ab crunch and everything. The swivel at the waist. One thing he does have that Snake Eyes didn't even have is a butterfly joint right there. I wonder why they gave it to Destro and not you know, roadblock or snake eyes. I don't know, but he does have a smaller butterfly joint in there. Going down to the boots, his legs are pretty plain. It does have that dark gray here, which is, like I said, I don't know. I'd have to think about it if I'm a big fan of that. It's got the backpack hole right there, and then the gun holster on this side. And the gun holster is obviously for this bad boy right here. So I like this because it's not just one color. That's what we've seen on all the guns so far in the series. They're all just one color. So this has got the Crimson Cobra accents on it, which just kick it up another notch. I love it. I love the black and the red. I was always a villain fan when I was a kid, so I definitely liked Cobra's designs more than a lot of G.I. Joe's designs. And this just cements that further. And it does go into the holder on his leg. It is very tight, but that's good. I guess, you know, it'll stay in there. It's not going to come out. It is pretty bulky on his side too, but you know, I think that's pretty realistic looking. I mean, that's what it would look like if it was a real gun on his side. So I dig it. Comes with a golden gun too. Destro plays a lot of GoldenEye, I guess. He's got the golden gun. He can kill you in one shot. And then he comes with the briefcase from Pulp Fiction. What is inside? I don't know. Are we gonna die? Is our face gonna melt off if we look what's inside? Should we do it? It is money. There's money in this side. In this side, I guess maybe that's not money. Maybe that's explosives. No, it's money. I think it's money. And then there's a keyboard here with a screen and a Cobra symbol. So, you know, maybe this is like a, I don't know, a bomb or something. I don't know. You throw his golden gun in there if you want to and close it on up. And that is Destro. I don't think I'd change anything about there's a little paint splot right there. A little sloppy little paint spot, but overall, everything else looks pretty good. One note that I am noting on the G.I. Joe figures is the hands are super tight. It's kind of hard to get the guns in and out of their hands. So maybe there's some tricks to that. I'll find out online. Like, it's hard to get this briefcase fully in his hand. But you know, it looks good. I dig it. The only thing I might change is some of this gray up here. But overall, it's Destro. Alright, Scarlett is up next, and I actually really like this design. Her original figure, like I said before, is very... there's not much to go on. It's just a blob of tan and brown with some red hair. The really only distinguishing characteristics, she had this red sort of shoulder pad on her left shoulder, and she used crossbows, obviously, so, you know, arrow weapons. We know that from her dossier. And so from the comic book, Scarlett was, you know, Snake Eyes' significant other. So they had, you know, they went on missions together. They trained together and everything. I believe they were married. I'm not 100% sure. She was definitely more a complex character in the comics than she was on the cartoon. And I definitely liked her when I was a kid. I thought she was way cooler than like Lady J in Jinx. Jinx from the G.I. Joe movie. She was definitely the female G.I. Joe figure that I enjoyed the most. So a lot of the details are really good here. I especially like the face job. The job they did on the face, it looks, you know, it is very soft, right? Like, obviously these are military specialists, so people think, so I know people have complained that, you know, it may be a little too soft, but I don't think so. Like, I think it looks completely fine. I love her facial features. She's even got a painted on earring there. The lip color, the eye color and everything. The paint job on the head and even the hair. She's got the traditional red hair. It's not as bright red as it used to be, but it's got some like lighter, like highlights right there and a lighter highlight right there at the top of the ponytail. Like, I think that looks really good. I think that looks pretty cool. I don't have the original version before they did this redeco, so I don't know how that differed, but I know some people weren't happy with that, I guess, which is maybe why they did this. But I don't know. So she's got the base G.I. Joe articulation, except no double elbows. She's got much skinnier arms, so there's only single elbows there. And there's no joint right there. Like most of the male G.I. Joes that I've seen so far have that joint right there, which she does not have. And she doesn't have an ab crunch either. So they do, I don't know, the Marvel sort of thing. So there's a swivel right there. And then, you know, the upper chest area that moves around too. All right, so belt keeps popping up, put it down. She's also got a shoulder strap right here, which goes around to arrows on the back, because remember, she uses crossbows. So this is where she pulls out the arrows. I guess she pulls them out from the bottom. And those are, you know, separate pieces. It is bunching up there quite a lot, so I'm going to mess with it a little bit off camera. The belt keeps popping up too, but you know, once she gets on the shelf, the belt like that looks phenomenal. I really like the sculpt on here and everything. Her proportions and everything, it's spot on to me from what I would think a realistic Scarlett should look like. I definitely dig this figure. So obviously she's a arrow weapon expert, and she has her trusty crossbow here. She originally came with a crossbow, so she's not a bow and arrow user, she's a crossbow user. So this is, you know, like a futuristic crossbow, I guess. So again, it's just plain black. There's no paint details or anything like that. But I don't complain much about that because G.I. Joes are $20 figures. They're 22 now, but I don't complain about that in $20 figures, okay? And then she's got 3 knives. So 2 of them are the same, these 2 bigger ones, and the smaller one's a little bit different sculpt. If you can see that, the 2 bigger ones have a serrated edge, and the smaller one's just like a small, you know, oyster dagger. She's an oyster shucker. So I do believe the 2 longer daggers go in the top of this. There is a slit at the top of it. So, and it does have sort of the sculpting of a knife holder inside, like under the arrows. So I stuck the big ones in there. The small one, there's a holder for the small one on this front part right here. So again, it does bunch up a little bit. So I'll try to get it. Yeah, that looks pretty good, right? Down like that. It does stick out quite a lot. I mean, it looks kind of goofy in practice, I guess. That would get in the way, but I don't know. It is what it is. And one cool thing to note about G.I. Joe hands too, I know I talked about how they're a little hard to do, but it's really cool that the finger actually goes in the trigger of the guns for all the figures that I've seen so far. That's a cool little touch. That's probably why, you know, the hands are a little bit harder to get into, because they, you know, it was important for them as a design decision to do that. I definitely like this Scarlett figure. I think this looks phenomenal. I know some people don't like it. I don't care. I like it. So that's my verdict. All right, next up is Duke. Duke, the fearless leader, or one of the fearless leaders in G.I. Joe. And one thing that stands out to me right away about this figure, like I said, I don't have the single figure. I don't know how this compares to that. This is probably just a complete recolor is what I'm guessing. From the cartoon in the comic book, Duke looks way older than this figure. To me, this figure, he looks super young. Like, as young as the other G.I. Joes, but from what I understood when I was a kid, he was like one of the elder statesmen, you know what I mean? Like he was, you know, I think he's the older brother of Falcon, right? And I don't know, he looks super young in this figure. But anyways, the head sculpt is good. I do like it. I like the 2-tone hair right there. He does look very Duke-like, very stoic, very serious. He doesn't joke around a lot. Like he is, you know, leads by example. And again, this is based on his second figure. So this is the Tiger Force variant, which I'll show on the screen right here. And it looks pretty similar. It definitely looks like a, you know, updated version of the initial figure. The color of the pants is a little off. I guess in the little original figure, it's more like brownish than like this color. This is like orange, but it's not like real orange. Like, I don't know how to describe it. There's probably a Crayola color for this color. I just don't know it, okay? But I don't know. The color looks a little different than the original figure, which, like I said on the screen, I'll show it. But I'm sure this is just a repaint of the first figure. So I definitely like, you know, the work on it. He does have the butterfly joint in there. You know, again, he's got all these loose parts on there, loose belt, loose holster. He's got all the articulation you'd want. I definitely like the boots. Or the shin guards, I guess, in front of the boots, the black shin guards going down to the gray boots. I think that looks pretty cool. And that's one little detail that wasn't on the first Tiger Force figure as far as I can remember back in the day, or based on these shots or anything. So I definitely like this. Maybe I'll put up a shot of here of the original figure just to educate myself on what it looks like. But again, this is the Tiger Force variant. It looks like Duke for sure. It's just, it looks way younger than I would expect Duke to look based on my memory, based on, you know, the movie, based on it. I don't know, the stuff from the show, but I mean, it's Duke. It's Duke. It looks pretty cool. So we'll go over Duke's accessories first. He does come with a backpack. Like I said, all the G.I. Joes have that hole in the back. This backpack is pretty cool. It's got 2 cantinas on the side. It's got a shovel right there. The shovel is actually painted, so a different color. So even a small touch like that, I definitely like, rather than, you know, a flat solid color. But, you know, the sculpting work and everything, the pockets, the shovel, the canteens, everything looks pretty good. This is really cool. He comes with the binoculars, which his original Tiger Force figure actually came with. He did have a pair of binoculars. You could even see it on the picture of the package, which I'll show again on the screen. So it's pretty cool that he came with one here too. And they paid attention to some of the classic details or some of the classic figures. And then he's got 2 different guns here too. And again, just like the classic figure, this gun is sort of a remake of the classic gun he came with. The backpack was too. His original backpack actually did have that shovel on it too. So this figure really does take after the first figure quite a lot, and I'm definitely impressed with that. Modernizing it, but you know, hitting the nostalgia aspects of it. All right, so backpack goes on the back. He does have a hole right here, and I believe that's for the binoculars. So you could stick the binoculars right back there too. Very cool. I hope it doesn't interfere with the backpack very much though. They're pretty close together. All right, there you go. All right, so binoculars on the back, and then obviously gun holster here for the smaller gun. Fits in there nice and snug. It's not gonna fall out. I love that about the accessories, the G.I. Joe accessories. And then again, that original gun of his with the finger in the trigger actually fits. It looks very good. I like all the details. I even noticed there's, you know, bullet holes down here on the shin guards. So he's lucky he got shot there. But, you know, they're unique sculpts on each side with different bullet holes and stuff. So I do like a lot of the details for Duke. I just think he needs to look a little bit older based on my memory. But overall, I can dig it. I can see him leading some Joes into battle for sure. And obviously, why you'd buy the new set is the Ram. So this is the Tiger Force Ram. There's a regular Ram, a green one, but this is the Tiger Force version. So it's got this, you know, the signature Tiger Force mouth right there, simulating a tiger. I don't know. I don't really think it looks like a tiger, but you know, it's got a big mouth, but you know, it's a tiger. So there's the tiger stripe. So the paint job is pretty good. It's got the white, you know, that fades into the darker orange, fades into the, you know, lighter yellow as it goes down. And, you know, all the details on the bike that you would think are here. So, you know, the tires really move. It's got the exhaust, all the sculpting details right there, the pegs for his feet. The wheel actually does turn too. It clicks around, so it's not, which is good. I'm saying it's not going to turn by itself and fall over. Like once you get, you know, it down there, it's going to stay there. It's not going to move and wobble. It's even got a clear plastic right there, like the headlight, which looks pretty cool. And then it's got the dark visor up top. There's obviously the seat to sit down. There's his speedometer. Watch your speed, man. Don't get pulled over, Duke. And then going to this side, it's got a backwards American flag right there. I don't know what that means. And the big honking gun. And the big honking gun I already put on here, but it does come off if you don't know. So the big honking gun you can take off. So he can just ride his motorcycle like a free man. But this does come off. It pops open. It actually comes apart. I put it together. So that part pops open and he can actually hold this too, this Gatling gun. But this is a big old gun, maybe something that Roadblock would use, you know what I mean? But I guess Duke can use it sometimes too. So he holds it there with both hands, you know? So it's pretty cool that, you know, it's got two different, I don't know, modes essentially. Like you can keep it on the vehicle or you can take it off, whatever you want for your display, whatever will make you happy. But I always really did like the Tiger Force, like colors and everything. I had a couple Tiger Force guys when I was little. I didn't have a lot of them. I had a lot of Ninja Force, which we'll see eventually as we go through this journey on my channel. If you like my channel and you stay tuned, I do have a few of the Ninja Force guys left in my collection because I loved ninjas when I was little. But anyways, the bike looks pretty cool. I like all the details. I'm not quite sure it's worth the original price is, I don't know, $45, $50 or so. I got this on sale and it's definitely worth the sale price for sure, but it's definitely a cool little mini vehicle, you know, for the collection. Right, so I gotta say, for this first batch of G.I. Joes, it definitely lived up to my expectations, and I can't wait to open more. My favorite childhood toy when I was growing up is in a new age. And I definitely love the modernization of some of the figures. I like, you know, the callbacks on some of the figures. So as long as they keep having that mix of it as the series goes and evolves, then I think I will be happy. And even though these are obviously a lot different than the 3 3/4 inch figures that I had when I was little, this brings me way back there, very nostalgic, and I love it. So keep tuning in, keep checking for more. I'm gonna keep going through my G.I. Joe collection, try to get up to the current figures in small batches like this. So if you like this, let me know. Let me know what your favorite figures are from each batch of figures that I do, what you like, what you don't like. Let's talk, let's chat, let's get together. Guys, gals, non-binary pals, thanks a lot, peace out.